This video is about all the famous people and celebrities who passed away in 1972 in the United States. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Jessie Royce Landis, she was born in November 1896 and she died in February 1972. Her age was 75 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was cancer. Jessie Royce Landis was an American actress. She remains perhaps best known for her mother roles in the Hitchcock films To Catch a Thief and North by Northwest in 1959. Landis was a stage actress for much of her career. When her first husband's family encountered financial problems, she joined the North Shore Players as leading lady and director. In 1924, she left those dual roles to go on tour with The Highwaymen. Her Broadway career began with The Honor of the Family in 1926 and ended with Roar Like a Dove in 1964. In her early years on Broadway, she continued to act in touring productions. In the early 1950s, Landis spent 3 seasons acting on stage in London. Landis was recognized for the Best Performance of the Year for her acting in Larger Than Life in London in 1950. In the era of old-time radio, Landis had the roles of Irene Emerson on Helpmate and the housekeeper on The House on Q Street. She also was part of a stellar cast of Broadway actors and actresses in the cast of We Are Always Young on War in New York in 1941. Jerome Cowan. He was born in October 1897 and he died in January 1972. His age was 74 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. Jerome Cowan was an American stage, film, and television actor. Cowan's Broadway debut was in We Have Got to Have Money in 1923. He was spotted by Samuel Goldwyn and was given a film contract, his first film being Beloved Enemy. He appeared in more than 100 films, but is probably best remembered for 2 roles in classic films. Miles Archer, the doomed private eye partner of Sam Spade in The Maltese Falcon, and Thomas Mara, the hapless district attorney who has to prosecute Santa Claus in Miracle on 34th Street. Cowan also played Dagwood Bumstead's boss, Mr. Radcliffe, in several installments of Columbia Pictures' Blondie series. He also appeared in Deadline, At Dawn, June Bride, and High Sierra. Cowan starred in Not for Publication on the Dumont Television Network in 1952. In 1959, he played Horatio Styles in the episode Winter Song of the Alaskans with Roger Moore. The same year, he made 2 guest appearances in Perry Mason, starring Raymond Burr. He played murdered playwright Ernest Royce in The Case of the Lost Last Act, and then Victor Latimore in The Case of the Artful Dodger. Ross Bagdasarian. He was born in January 1919 and he died in January 1972. His age was 52 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Ross Bagdasarian was an American singer, songwriter, record producer, and actor, best known for creating the cartoon band Alvin and the Chipmunks. Initially a stage and film actor, he rose to prominence in 1958 with the songs Witch Doctor and the Chipmunk song Christmas Don't Be Late, which both became Billboard #1 singles. He produced and directed The Alvin Show, which aired on CBS in 1961 to 1962. Bagdasarian's Broadway debut was in 1939 when he played the newsboy in The Time of Your Life by William Sarion, his cousin. He also appeared in minor roles in several films such as Viva Zapata in 1952, Stalag 17 in 1953, Destination Gobi in 1953, and The Proud and Profane in 1956. In Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window in 1954, he is the lonely composer at the piano. Bagdasarian's major success with songwriting came with Come On My House. The song was rejected by many record companies as being too ethnic, until Mitch Miller of Columbia Records came across the song, liked it, and persuaded Rosemary Clooney to record it. Betty Smith. She was born in December 1896 and she died in January 1972. Her age was 75 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was pneumonia. Betty Smith was an American playwright and novelist who wrote the 1943 bestseller A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. From a young age, Smith had a deep and abiding interest in stage theater. She and her younger brother Willie regularly attended Saturday matinees at Brooklyn theaters for 10 cents each, which allowed them to stand in the gallery. With the end of her drama studies at Yale, Smith and her children returned to live briefly in her mother's house in Woodhaven, Queens. In 1953, an opportunity with the Works Projects Administration fortuitously arose, and Smith began working for the Federal Theater Project as a play reader. In May 1936, she and 3 other Federal Theater Project members, including Bob Finch, were shifted to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to participate in regional theater activities. It was in Chapel Hill that Smith finally found a place to call home, and despite continuing struggles with money, she began to write more earnestly. In the late 1930s, Smith began to shift her attention from playwriting to attempting a novel. Joe Curtis. He was born in November 1882 and he died in January 1972. His age was 89 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an American football player and coach. While playing for the University of Michigan, he was selected as a first-team All-Western tackle 3 consecutive years from 1904 to 1906, and as an All-American in 1904 and 1905. In his 4 seasons as the starting left tackle for the Michigan Wolverines, the team compiled a record of 37-2-1, won 2 national championships, and outscored opponents by a combined total of 1699-60. Curtis later served as the head football coach at Tulane University from 1907 to 1908 and at Colorado School of Mines in 1909. As a freshman in 1903, Curtis was selected by Yost to play on the varsity football team. He started all 12 games at left tackle for the Michigan team that finished the season with a record of 11-0-1, outscored opponents 565-6, and has been retrospectively declared national champions. In 1904, Curtis started all 10 games at left tackle for the Michigan football team that compiled a 10-0 record, outscored opponents 567-22, and has been retrospectively declared national champions. Timothy McCoy. He was born in May 1955 and he died in January 1972. His age was 16 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was murder. Timothy McCoy was an American murder victim from Omaha, Nebraska. He is the first known victim of serial killer and sex offender John Wayne Gacy, who raped, tortured, and murdered at least 33 young men and boys in Norwood Park Township near Chicago, Illinois. Between 1972 and 1978, McCoy encountered Gacy at Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal in the early hours of January 3, 1972, while he waited for a connecting bus to his father's home in Nebraska. Due to the following noon, he was lured to Gacy's home and subsequently stabbed to death. His body was later buried in the crawl space beneath the property and was only recovered following Gacy's December 1978 arrest, although his body remained unidentified until May 1986. Following his 1986 identification, McCoy's remains were returned to his family. His body was interred alongside his father within West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home and Memorial Park in his home state of Nebraska. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.